voting. It's how America speaks to the manager. And if you're about to say, but Trevor, I just voted in November. The whole point is not to have to think about it for another 4 years. Well, listen up. Because if you don't pay attention, you might not be able to vote again in 4 years.
False fraud claims are now fueling GOP efforts to roll back, to restrict voter access.
33 state legislatures have already introduced 165 bills to restrict voting access just since last month. Florida restricting vote by mail after nearly 5 million Floridians voted that way last year.
In Pennsylvania, Republicans are trying to roll back mail-in voting expansions they passed just 2 years ago. In New Hampshire, they're trying to require voter ID for absentee ballots while banning the use of student IDs.
In Arizona, one proposal would even allow the legislature to override the Secretary of State's certification of the electoral votes.
If they're not happy with the result, they can just change it.
Yes, Republicans saw the record number of people exercising their rights to vote, and they said, yo, that shit cannot happen again. And some of these proposals are really extreme, right? This Arizona law would let the legislator just override the decision of the voters. Once that happens, what's the point of even voting? Arizona's going to have to update their stickers. But hey, I get it. I mean, Republicans have to make it harder to vote so that they have a better chance of winning elections. The only other option for them is to change their policies to appeal to a majority of voters. But come on, that's way too hard. Human beings will do whatever they can to avoid changing what they think. And this has been the story for all of human history. People don't like changing their minds. My friends, it appears that there are multiple solar systems, many more than we thought. We have to change everything. Yes? Or we could just burn you at the stake. Come on, guys. So, these voter restrictions are popping up all over the country. You know, sort of like the herpes of democracy. But there's one state where Republicans are going harder than anywhere. The one that just cost them the Senates.
Georgia Republicans introduced a set of sweeping new bills to limit access to polls in that state.
Nearly a dozen bills that could make it harder to vote have already been introduced in the state Senate. Headline-grabbing proposal requiring 2 copies of photo ID just to vote by mail. Others would end automatic voter registration, the use of ballot drop boxes, and no-excuse absentee voting.
One bill would also end early in-person voting on Sundays, days when black churches have historically held something called Souls to the Polls drives to turn out their members.
Ending souls to the polls. Whew. Maybe y'all aren't going to have to answer to black voters anymore, but you're still going to have to answer to Jesus. But that's right. Georgia Republicans think that if they can ban early voting on Sundays, they can kill souls to the polls, which is when black worshipers go vote together right after church. Well, the joke's on you, Republicans, because one thing you should have learned about black people is they can do church anytime, any place. It doesn't even need to be on a Sunday. Shit, when I was growing up, we went to church Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday we had morning cartoons, but Sunday we went double. And by the way, you gotta love how racists today have to learn so much about black people just so that they can be racist. I mean, back in the day, they could just say, no blacks allowed. But now, they have to find out what black people do so that they can ban that. So now you have racists like, no souls to the polls, no one with fresh Timbs, and no one who watches Insecure. Well, actually, Billy, Insecure is not on the air right now. I think all the black folk are watching reruns of Girlfriends on Netflix. Of course, there's nothing new about states making it harder for people to vote. I mean, we've all seen every election. There are lines longer than the ones on Don Jr.'s mirror. But one of the new laws being proposed would make waiting in those lines even harder.
There's a part in this bill that prohibits the handing out of food and water to voters. It says that nor shall any person give, offer to give, or participate in the giving of any money or gifts, including but not limited to food and drink to an elector. So people who would take water to people who were standing for hours in lines, this bill would make that a crime.
Congratulations, Georgia. You finally solved the issue of widespread voter hydration. Republicans are ballers, man, you gotta admit. They reduced the voting locations so that people have to wait in line for hours, and now they want to ban people from giving out food and water to people who are waiting in line. It's like every year they make it 5% harder to vote. By 2030, the voting line is just going to be an American Ninja Warrior episode. I mean, if you guys are going to be evil, at least don't be so blatant about it. Instead of banning water, Republicans should hand out even more water. And then ban porta potties. Yeah, now you're evil and clever. Now, for the most part, Republicans aren't coming right out and saying that they're passing these laws to stop Democrats and minorities from voting. Instead, they're taking the big lie that they used in the last election and recycling it to try and win the next one.
I do believe that voting in this country is a privilege. And
it's a right.
And it's a right as well, but it ought to mean enough where you can put forth a little bit of effort in trying to cast your ballot. We're not taking away anybody's rights, but what we are asking is we want a fair and honest election that doesn't have all the allegations that we had in this past election cycle.
Those allegations, baseless claims of fraud, were promoted by Jones, who was recently stripped of a committee chairmanship following his efforts to undermine the presidential election.
Oh, that's impressive, man. This guy says we need new laws to address the bogus voter fraud allegations that he spread. What we have here, my friends, is a rare real-life instance of a person both smelting it and delting it. I mean, for real though, this is ridiculous. If you're going to make up evidence out of thin air and use it against black people, you should not be a lawmaker. You go join the police. So, that's the situation. Republicans are trying to change the rules to make it easier for them to win elections. And people who are concerned about that basically have two choices. One, you can make sure that these restrictions do not get passed, or you can get your ass in line right now for Election Day 2022. Oh, and you might want to make sure you bring your own water.